Everyone here, New Plymouth City Council.
And if you would like to start by introducing your colleague and speak to the submission, and if there is any time left, there might be questions from members. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Tēnā koutou katoa, ngā mihi nui. My name is Neil Holdom, and I'll be one of your mayors today. And with me is Councillor Tony Bedford. He's the Deputy Chair of our Strategy and Operations Committee and co-signee on our submission. So thank you, Madam Chair. And look, I'll take our submission as read, and I'll just start with our kaupapa on behalf of New Plymouth District Council. Our objectives are to see New Zealand significantly reduce emissions, to maintain the reliability of our national energy sector, to ensure affordability for New Zealanders in terms of their access to energy, and to continue to underpin New Zealand's strong economic performance. I just want to acknowledge our government for taking advice before taking a decision on this important matter, and also for allowing people to make public submissions. I note that in 2018, when the previous administration made the decision, they took no advice and allowed no public submissions and just put it through. And I note that there was a comment made about why the energy sector has been reluctant to invest by Chloe Swarbrick, and the reason is because of the massive damage that was done to New Zealand's reputation in terms of sovereign risk when we threw the process out the window and basically developed policy on the fly based on a media release from the Prime Minister at a university gathering. I sat down with the Prime Minister at the time in 2018 and provided those goals that I've articulated to you. And then we described the two scenarios that New Zealand had ahead of it. And the first one was the one that we were focused on, which was if we get it right. If we get it right, we can significantly reduce emissions. We can early switch to lower carbon fuels, e.g. for transport, to lower the carbon content of gas by things like biogas, carbon capture and sequestration, and also transitioning to hydrogen. We could maintain reliability of our energy sector by using a diverse energy sources and growing the availability of other plant to provide energy for New Zealand. That energy prices would reflect domestic resource availability. In other words, we could maintain price stability, and the existing infrastructure that New Zealanders have invested in could be used as an economic way to transport and store energy. And that, you know, the industry will be capable of competing on total cost of production, including emissions, and that we retain our engineering skills and deploy them into new areas of sustainability, sustainable energy generation. So that was if we got it right. And then if we got it wrong, that we would see continued use of high carbon fuels like we have lately, i.e. that we replace gas with coal. And I note that this year we've seen a record increase in the amount of coal New Zealand has burned to keep the energy system operating, and that Huntly has ordered 350,000 tonnes of coal to get us through next year due to the shortage of gas. We would see poor levels of reliability, and we've seen, I think we've had 4 grid emergencies in the last 4 years, that we've seen domestic shortages driving up energy costs, and you've seen the price of the spot market, the closure of those 2 North Island mills. We've seen Tiwai reduce production and Methanex cease production, and what we've done is, you know, we've chucked our emissions over the fence. Those products that would have been produced by predominantly clean New Zealand energy will be now produced in economies offshore with using coal and higher emission fuels, and we'll see industry closures without lowering global emissions. So from my perspective, you know, the energy policy in 2018 defied the science. They never took any advice from any scientists, and they never really looked at what it would take the energy sector to change. We've advocated for a smooth transition where we can maintain, as I say, reduce emissions, maintain reliability, ensure affordability, and continue New Zealand's strong economic performance. And we see no point in swapping out gas for coal, which is what the last policy did. So we're supportive of this legislation, and I'm happy to take some questions.
Thank you, Mayor Holdom, and thank you, Councillor Tony. We have questions from members. Kiwi-Birb.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for your submission. I wonder, Mayor, if the challenge you face being the heart of the oil and gas industry in Aotearoa, New Zealand, is that the ability for you and your advocacy to look at the big picture, which is on a global scale, we need to transition away from oil, gas and coal, and looking for new oil and gas is not what the International Energy Agency say we should be doing. And so what my question is beyond oil, gas and coal, and I've heard your submission on why you think we should keep looking for it, what are the other ways that you can be creating jobs and employment and security of energy in your region? Because we do have to transition away from those fossil fuels if we're going to have a livable planet. Sure,
look, and just as a background, I've got 20 years in the energy sector. I'm actually really passionate about decarbonisation. I've been working on it long before I got involved in council. I was actively part of the drive electric crew, encouraging charging infrastructure and things, looking at vehicle emissions. But I think the key issue is, if you look globally, all of the more, I suppose, sophisticated emissions reduction policy is you tackle coal first. Gas is seen as a transition fuel to buy us time to grow the supply of renewable energy resources available, because we know that we have to overbuild renewables to provide a steady stream of income of energy during those times of peak demand. At the moment, we've got a shortage of gas. When we have a shortage of water in the lakes, we burn coal and we drive our emissions up, or we close industry. So I think at a global level, we have to realise that shutting off methanol production in New Zealand from gas doesn't reduce global demand for methanol. It just means methanol will be produced based from coal with higher emissions. Shutting off the gas industry in New Zealand means that essentially we're going to export jobs overseas and drive New Zealanders out of business. So at a global level, I think what we should do is let's get rid of the most significant emissions first and buy ourselves time to bring on things like offshore wind, things like biofuels, and those things that steadily increase the availability of renewable supply. But to basically say we're going to kill the gas industry, we don't know what's going to fill it, and we don't actually have a plan for that, but we're hoping that international investors that we spooked with this decision will somehow come and save the day for us by investing in other technologies. It's a hope strategy as opposed to an achievable plan.
Steve, your hand is still up. Do you have a supplementary, or is it no?
I don't want to get in front of Willie if there's only time for one question, but my sup was
No.
only...
All right. So you don't have a question. Go to...
I do have a sup actually, but I don't want to suffer.
No.
My sup is really whether just very quickly
Right,
to answer it, but is whether the Mayor has seen the contemporary research that coal is actually a cleaner fuel than gas when you take into account fugitive emissions.
I haven't seen that, but I suppose I informed a lot of my stuff on the work of Dr. David Prentice from the Interim Climate Change Committee and their report, which I contributed to, which essentially advocated the position that we've had, that we should be reducing coal and replacing it with gas until such time as we've got renewables available to fill the supply.
All right. Quick question from Honourable Billy Jackson.
Hey, Neil.
Here's Willie.
You'd be totally out of sync with all the Māoris down there, wouldn't you? Given the strategies and that have, you know how strong the protest has been, and of course you've got your committee who supports
God, I love
the
Willie.
council. There would be a Māori who supports you down there, Neil. Would that be right?
I don't know, are you speaking on behalf of them?
Oh, I think I can, because I'm related to them.
Oh, okay.
I do have,
Yeah,
as you well know, but they're very opposed to what you're talking about, aren't they?
I don't speak on behalf of Tangata Whenua, but I think the reality is it depends on who you talk to in terms of what the answer you get. But the reality is we developed an economic strategy with Mana Whenua just prior to the Labour government or the coalition government shock announcement, and it talked about our desire to have a managed transition into more renewables, and that's all we've looked for. But as I say, what you've done is essentially caused massive energy rationing.
Can I just ask?
All right, no, members, we don't have time for. We don't have. We have to stop there. Billy Jackson, we'll have to stop there. We don't have.
You didn't give me the answer, Neil.
Thank you so
Okay. So nowhere in that submission did I hear urgency for transition. It's like, what about Onslow? What about, why can't we do offshore windmills now? Why can't we do that stuff now so we can ease pressure on gas production? Oh, I wonder why. Yeah.
I've been involved in this discussion, in particular in Australia, for a very long time. And again, I come back to the same reinforceable point I keep on making about the double narrative. The word you'll hear often in what's talked about is transition. And also the second part you'll hear is look, we're not going to distract you from the real issue, which is the environment and climate change and the economic reasoning and rationale for all this nonsense, which is but at least coal is cleaner than gas, and gas is cleaner than coal. It's just absolutely ridiculous. Sorry, can you hear that squealing?
No.
I've transitioned to the kitchen.
Okay. Quick transition to the kitchen. Yes. Yeah. Now, if we can only get our government to transition over to green energy as quickly as that, that'd be fantastic.
I think too, the way I'd also explain this, team, is that look, technology is such today that the things that we thought were not possible 10 years ago are possible now.
Yep.
There are things that we can do now that the climate change emergency, which is what I would say it is so present in what we're doing every day that New Zealanders themselves are becoming savvy to the changes that need to be made. Hey, you be quiet. So, you know, I think, can you hear that?
Yeah, I can hear her.
I won't tell you what she's done. That means that I'm down this end of the house.
Oh, okay. I don't need to know.
This is called Vengeance is Mine, and I will take vengeance on you this very evening.